Behind many of the world's conflict flashpoints, one country keeps being mentioned: Iran. From its strategic location in the Middle East to its history as a mighty empire, Iran is at the heart of countless international disputes. To understand modern-day Iran, we must first look back in time. Iran, once home to one of the world's greatest empires, has always seen itself as a central player in world affairs. The Persian Empire at its peak had more than 50 million people, a powerhouse that ruled over vast territories. This rich history shapes the Iranian national psyche today. Iran is home to one of the world's oldest continuous civilizations, stretching back thousands of years. From the Achaemenid Empire, founded by the legendary Cyrus the Great, to the rule of Darius I, Iran has been a key player in the course of ancient history. The Persian Empire, with its reach across continents and its cultural influence, laid the foundation for the modern identity of the Iranian people. For many Iranians, they are still heirs to this glorious past, and this belief in Iran's historical importance influences their vision of the country's role in the world today. Throughout its history, Iran was governed by a series of influential empires, including the Parthian Empire and the Sasanian Empire, both of which left their mark on the Iranian plateau for hundreds of years. However, in the 7th century, the region underwent a dramatic transformation when Muslim Arab forces invaded and introduced Islam. This shift from the ancient Zoroastrian faith to Islam was a pivotal moment for Iran, and though it significantly changed the cultural and religious fabric of the country, Iran's influence in the region remained intact. Fast forward to the early 20th century, and Iran again found itself at the center of global attention. The discovery of vast oil reserves in 1908 changed the geopolitical landscape of Iran. While Iran was never fully colonized, the creation of the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, later BP, allowed Britain significant control over Iranian resources. This foreign influence over Iran's oil reserves set the stage for future political turmoil, with control over oil being one of the most contested issues in the country's modern history. The political shift in Iran came to a head in 1953, when the United States and the United Kingdom orchestrated a coup to overthrow Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh had nationalized Iran's oil industry, and his policies were seen as a threat by the Western powers. The coup led to the reinstatement of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the pro-Western Shah, who ruled Iran for another 26 years. His reign was marked by relative stability and modernization, but it also sowed deep seeds of dissatisfaction. Many Iranians began to see the Shah as a puppet of Western powers, and his westernized policies alienated many who felt disconnected from Iran's Islamic and cultural roots. The growing discontent with the Shah reached its peak in 1979, culminating in the Iranian Revolution. This revolution led to the downfall of the monarchy and the rise of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, who would become the country's supreme leader. With Khomeini's return to Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran was born, marking a total break with the previous pro-Western monarchy. The revolution set the stage for decades of tension with the United States and the West. 1979 was a turning point, both politically and ideologically. Iran severed its ties with the US, which had supported the Shah for decades. The storming of the US embassy in Tehran by revolutionary students and the subsequent 444-day hostage crisis was a symbolic break from the past. Iran's new leadership under Khomeini promoted the idea of an Islamic Republic based on Shia principles, positioning itself as a beacon of resistance to Western imperialism. This event marked the beginning of decades of tension between Iran and the United States. Iran's break from Western influence not only transformed its domestic politics, but also reshaped its foreign relations. The US, in turn, viewed Iran's revolution as a destabilizing force in the region, and economic sanctions were imposed, isolating Iran from global trade and investment. In the years following the revolution, Iran began to align itself with anti-Western forces in the region. The country supported groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Palestine as part of its broader strategy to resist US influence and assert its independence. Iran's role in supporting such groups became central to its foreign policy. with the goal of countering Israeli and US dominance in the region. For the US, Iran's alignment with radical groups and its defiant stance against the West became a major point of contention. This led to years of diplomatic conflict, proxy wars, and military hostilities. By the 1980s, the US had become deeply involved in the Iran-Iraq war, supporting Iraq while Iran backed various factions opposed to US interests. Meanwhile, Iran found itself increasingly isolated, not just from the West, but from other Middle Eastern countries. One of the most famous flashpoints in the ongoing Iran-US rivalry came in 2020, when General Qasem Soleimani, the head of Iran's Quds force, was killed by a US drone strike. Soleimani was one of the most influential figures in Iran, and his death was seen as a direct challenge to Iran's sovereignty. Iran vowed retaliation, and the entire region braced for further escalation. This event highlighted the persistent tensions between the two nations, even after decades of hostilities. But beyond the personal grievances between Iran and the US, the conflict is rooted in competing ideologies. Iran seeks to protect its Islamic Revolution and promote its vision of an independent, Islamic-led Middle East. Meanwhile, the US views Iran's rise as a destabilizing force, threatening its interests and the stability of the region. This ideological clash has resulted in continued diplomatic and military tension. Iran's nuclear program has been a significant source of tension in this rivalry. The West has expressed concerns that Iran's nuclear ambitions are not just about energy production but about developing nuclear weapons. Iran insists that its nuclear program is peaceful, but the international community remains skeptical. The 2015 Iran nuclear deal, JCPOA, was a major diplomatic breakthrough, placing limits on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. However, the US withdrawal from the deal in 2018 under President Trump reignited fears that Iran might pursue nuclear weapons. Iran views nuclear weapons as a vital part of its defense strategy. For the Iranian government, nuclear deterrence is seen as the ultimate safeguard against foreign aggression, especially from countries like the US and Israel. The pursuit of nuclear weapons is also tied to Iran's desire to assert itself as a regional power and a leader in the Muslim world. But this ambition complicates Iran's relationships with the international community and makes it a focal point of global tensions. In the meantime, Iran has expanded its influence across the Middle East by supporting proxy groups and militias. These groups, which include Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen, allow Iran to exert influence in regions where it cannot engage directly. This strategy, known as asymmetric warfare, helps Iran avoid full-scale conflicts while still projecting power in the region. However, it also complicates relations with neighboring countries, especially Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the US. Iran's role in Syria has been another key area of its foreign policy. The country has been a steadfast ally of Bashar al-Assad's regime in the Syrian civil war, providing military support and training to Assad's forces. This intervention has put Iran at odds with countries like Saudi Arabia and Turkey, who back the opposition forces. For Iran, Syria is a vital strategic ally and a link to its proxy groups in Lebanon and Iraq. Iran's involvement in proxy wars in places like Yemen, Syria, and Iraq has allowed it to become a dominant force in the Middle East without engaging in direct military conflict. However, this strategy comes with significant risks, as it has drawn the ire of neighboring countries and global powers like the US and Israel, who view Iran's growing influence as a threat. At its core, Iran's foreign policy is shaped by its desire for survival. Surrounded by powerful enemies, Iran's leaders have always sought to preserve the country's sovereignty and independence. After the Iran-Iraq War, Iran realized it could no longer rely solely on conventional forces to defend itself. This led to a shift in Iran's military strategy, with an emphasis on asymmetric warfare and missile deterrence. Iran's missile program is one of the most visible aspects of its military strategy. Unlike many countries, Iran has focused heavily on developing ballistic missiles as a means of projecting power and deterring foreign intervention. These missiles give Iran the ability to strike regional targets without needing a large conventional army. The development of its missile capabilities is closely tied to its nuclear ambitions, as both serve to strengthen Iran's military deterrence and protect its sovereignty. In conclusion, Iran's involvement in global conflicts stems from a combination of historical factors, ideological commitments, and a desire to protect its sovereignty. From its ancient empire to its modern-day role as a key regional power, Iran's policies have always been shaped by the need to assert itself in a world that often sees it as an adversary. Iran's military strategy, its nuclear ambitions, and its network of proxy groups all contribute to its central role in global affairs. As tensions between Iran and the West continue to escalate, Iran's strategic goals remain unchanged: to assert its independence, resist foreign intervention, and secure its place as a dominant force in the Middle East.